An F in the background too.
Literally.
It's perfect.
No, she was the the room song.
Oh yeah, Mansion.
Dude, that song's too
That
intense.
song is so intense.
It's a great segue into trust.
Bro, right?
Imagine that, like, we can get into it after you do your whole trip.
Okay. Yeah, it's cool. That's perfect.
Right, ready?
All right, welcome, Mushin Warriors, to another episode of Mushin Mental Academy, where our purpose is to provide you the tools for engagement in presence. Today's episode, I've got my brother in crime, Jacob, joining us here. Known this guy since fourth grade, love him to death, and we're gonna talk to you guys a little bit and just talk in general and see what kind of tools we can pull out from it. So, yeah, man, what up?
What up, bro? We just did some qigong, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Very
Yeah, that was
interesting.
fun. What'd
Yeah,
you think of it?
it was good, dude. Like, I think it's so in the actual movements exercises that we were doing, I always find it interesting how difficult it is to just move your body.
Yes, I've been finding that by practicing multiple times and by doing it more often, I'm actually moving smoother.
Right,
It's like it's almost like I have to throw myself into positions if I'm not fully engaged in that
right.
conscious movement.
Yeah, that leg one is definitely like a big eye
Yeah,
opener. This dude's
some
over here full
stretches.
splits, and it's just like,
But you should see every once in a while some people will come out and they'll do the exercise where they're like on their head doing a headstand.
you were up that for a second.
Bro,
You got
I'm
up.
working on that.
You were there for half a second, bro.
Yeah, dude. It's fun. I'm enjoying it and it's getting me more in tune with myself and that's also allowing me the clarity to get more in tune with the world around me too. So they're describing like the energy and stuff like that and ultimately like you can only really feel that if you've been able to get to a point of peace first. Because otherwise what you're feeling is your own energy, your own dissonance with everything going around. When you're able to get yourself into a point of clarity where your energy is let's say together and in harmony.
It's almost impossible to verbalize, right? Like it's that feeling when you're like in the sauna and you have that tension, and then you can just kind of like drop it away. Yeah, and like unless you've experienced it, like there's no way to describe it because it's a feeling. It's like a moment. It's like those like epiphanies that you have. Like, have you ever had someone tell you like advice like that you hear as a kid, and then like you're always like, yeah, yeah, obviously that makes sense, of course. And then one day,
I had that with Nike's Just Do It.
oh yeah,
Yeah, with Nike's Just Do It. There was one time where I was just like in train of thought, like one after the next, like just kind of hitting like oh, like with realizations. And then I was going through and like figuring out some stuff with life, and then the Just Do It thing like came to me. And it was because like essentially depending on what we're going through in life, sometimes that is exactly what we need to hear. It's just do it. Like cut everything else out. Action
you were
is
like, should I eat this Hershey bar?
key.
You're like, just do it.
Just.
Okay.
Oh, dude. Yeah, it's beautiful. It's beautiful.
Especially Hershey's with almonds.
Well, I'm gonna be real. I'm not a huge fan of the actual chocolate versions.
Oh no, dude, awful.
Okay, all right, cool, cool.
I'm with you. Yeah, yeah,
But as
for
far
sure,
as
for
like
sure.
having it, doing some s'mores, and just enjoying it from
I like, dude, Hershey's with almonds though,
right, that's the one to go, bro. Plus, you can get the bar like pretty cheap, bro. Literally.
or they have the cookies and cream one.
Yeah, yeah.
Dude,
Yeah.
those are
I like
beautiful.
to have that one melt in my mouth, and I just get like the crunchiness after.
But like, isn't that interesting? So Hershey started with like a product, right? A
Mm.
plain chocolate bar, and we all agree. You agree too, right? Hershey's suck.
It's
Like,
just not good
Hershey's
stuff.
Kisses suck. Hershey's chocolate bar sucks. But bro, when they branched off and they're like, yo, let's put some almonds in, fire. Let's make it cookies and cream, fire.
They have all like the different Hershey's Kisses too, like
But like a lot of like I think brands as they branch, it becomes a less quality brand product. Whereas with Hershey's, as they branched, the quality has improved.
interesting. So it's almost like they were utilizing like the fact that they could make chocolate to then like just make dope like desserts that are related with chocolate.
Right. Like, dude, almost everything, like Hershey's hot chocolate, fire. Like almost everything besides
The actual chocolate,
the
like
actual
the thing.
chocolate bar. Yeah.
So if you're listening, Hershey's, why don't you like partner up
With
like
Godiva for your chocolate bar.
and then just keep doing all the cool shit you do. But
Yeah. So what'd you guys learn? Let us know in the comments below. Could you imagine?
dude, that's a solid tool. Solid
Solid
tool.
tool. Tony
Uh,
Hershey's chocolate bars.
that's funny. Well, uh, let's you want to talk about some of the stuff we were talking about beforehand?
Sure.
Bring it in. So recently I've been playing around with some different ideas built off of some of the topics from the recent videos and about trust and just how everything kind of comes together. And Jacob and I were talking earlier about the act of creation and what it takes to create something that is, well, just to create anything, honestly. That's what we were talking about. And then we were talking about what you can do with that, how to create things that are specific and whatnot. So I'll share with our viewers exactly what we mentioned at the beginning to bring everyone on board. But essentially, to create, the very first step with it is to have a vision. You know, oftentimes it'll come to us and we'll just have this experience. It might be a feeling. It's, you know, in the same way as right now, any of us, you know, can, you know, try and picture a red number nine in our mind, right? So I challenge you to do the same thing. You, if you'd like to.
Mine was green.
So you can choose whatever color you want, but whatever color you decide it to be, see if you can actually see that color, right? So picture in your mind the number nine or any number you want and associate a color with it and see if you can visualize it. Now, once we've done that, like where is it? Is it over here? Is it right in front of us? It's hard to kind of pinpoint. It's like somewhere inside of us in a way, but we can still see it. Like I can literally see the number, but it's almost inside me. And so
Is it easier to see the number for you with your eyes open or closed?
close.
Open for me.
Really?
Yeah, because when I have them open, it's just kind of like right over here. When I have my eyes closed, it's just like darkness.
Because you have to like create
Right,
into the darkness
right,
versus the other way you're like kind of almost shifting the light around to make
right.
it that.
Exactly.
That's interesting. Um, those are so let's say that we're at that step now where we visualize whatever we want, you know, and we're doing it right now with numbers and with stuff just to like practice what that actually feels and looks like. But it could be whatever you want. If you want to go and become a, you know, all-star soccer player, picture that. Picture what that looks like. Picture the moment. Picture the goal you're scoring. Picture, you know, whatever action you want to be doing or whatever you want to see. All right. So as that comes, now how do we get it? How do we convert what's inside of us to being in the world around us? Like, how are we able to create? You know, how do we take this vision and make it real? Well, I would say that the next step is to understand and start looking at what tools we have around us that are capable of setting up the environment around what we want to create. So, you know, in this particular case, let's use the soccer example, right? Let's say we want to be an all-star soccer player playing for Barcelona, and you know, we want that to be our future. We feel really like attracted, drawn to this dream for whatever reason, whatever purpose it is, you know, for to each their own. The next step would be, okay, well, what elements do I have around me? What tools and resources do I have that can begin shaping that environment? Well, in this case, one of them would be that Barcelona is located in Spain. Okay, cool. So maybe move to Spain to get closer to Barcelona. All right. Well, maybe they have training camps. They do. They have training camps in various different locations. Maybe there's a way to get closer by starting to position ourselves around that. Okay, cool. What's next? Well, I have a soccer ball somewhere in there, right? So maybe we should go get a soccer ball and start practicing and start getting the skills, which will be the tools that we need at that vision, in that vision. So now we start actually positioning these different tools and placing them. And that very act begins the next critical element of creation, which I'll say is, or I'll call it the breath of life, breathing life into the vision that we want to see, into the creation that we wish to bring out of us and allow into the universe. And so this is done through energy. It's through flow. So we discussed before about being able to find space and clarity so that we can resonate and be in harmony with ourselves. The next steps are what to do with it. And what we do with that energy is the breath of life. What we do and how we act, our actions, the actual actions, the movement, the flow is critical. So we can talk about all the pieces all day long. We can sit there and like draw them out. And even these are forms and they are actions. You know, they come to us in this way. Sometimes we speak it. That's another form of action. We're creating energy or releasing energy, transforming energy, if you will. And so that is essentially how I would map a blueprint for creation is receiving the inspiration for whatever it is that we want to be doing or the attraction that's there. And then consciously moving to set the environment and then breathe action and life into what we're doing in a way that ties it.
Would you say those steps were see, believe, achieve?
Are they?
There's this hilarious back and forth between Luke Rockhold and Michael Bisping. So it was a pre-fight press conference before Michael Bisping fought Luke Rockhold for the middleweight belt. Um, and I don't know if anybody knows the story of Michael Bisping, but he's one of the most badass dudes you'll ever hear about in your entire life. He was a middleweight fighter, came down from light heavyweight, kind of always was that guy who would get right there, right to the point of getting a title shot, and then just like lose that fight
Well,
and then back down to the bottom. Work his way back up, boom, back down to the bottom. And so he gets a call while like on a boat filming a movie for a last minute fill in for this title shot against Luke Rockhold, who Luke Rockhold had already knocked Michael Bisping out a couple years prior. And so they're in this press conference to promote the fight, and Luke Rockhold is going on this spiel, not a spiel, but kind of like how you're doing, like,
yeah.
like, here's what I believe, like, you have to visualize it, believe you can do it, and then you can achieve it. And like, his thing just goes, believe, see, believe, achieve. That's just some bullshit. And the best part is Michael Bisping goes out and knocks out Luke Rockhold in the first round to
Damn.
become the new UFC middleweight champion. So he kind of skipped the see, believe, achieve, and just decided to create. So I guess what I'm kind of trying to say is, like creation comes in so many different ways, and like a lot of times you're creating something from like a thought that was originally going to be something else, right? Like the way I think about it is like, when you're playing guitar, like I don't know, maybe you don't play guitar, but anytime you're doing something active and you like are sitting there and you're like, I want to play through this scale over this track and like I want it to sound good. Me personally, anytime I try to create in that manner, it doesn't work. Whereas if I just release everything and just let like the interactions create themselves, if I just listen to what the sound of the guitar is giving me, it is almost always exactly what I want it to be. And so I think when people try to create, they get hung up on the detail of the creation, right? They get hung up on okay, I want to be a Barcelona professional soccer player. And it's like, I understand that, but you're also 38 years old. So it's like that feeling is still there. Like that is there. Like you should still act on that feeling, but don't be so stuck on the end goal that you lose what you could be creating in the adventure.
Well said. Very well said. Yeah, I think all of it is, like you said, starting with like listening too and being able to position yourself in that place of clarity so that what you're receiving and where you're going, your wants are your actual wants. Otherwise, you end up in a position where everything is going in disharmony.
Right.
So
It's like, do
like
you want to be a Barcelona soccer player or do you want millions of dollars that a
exactly.
Barcelona
And
soccer
so
player gets?
well said. And so by clarifying your like that specific like actual desire, that's where the utility from this stuff comes in
Do
because
you,
that's how you'll be able to build the picture around the specific nature. So like if you want to solo on guitar, but you're like, I want to do this, but like I want to do like tapping, right?
right.
The only way to do that is to like tap, right? So it's like you can't do it from any other method. Like you can learn stuff, but it's something different then. So in this particular sense, it's like the utility of this particular converse like that aspect of the conversation of creation is specifically to achieve to be able to like release what we've received like from that point of clarity. So if you've gotten the thing where you're like, okay, like I know this is what I'm supposed to do. I did the whole thing. Like I received that message. I know where the clarity is. But like, what do I do now? Like, how do I actually do it?
So, but I think that we're almost like skipping a more important step by saying, hey, you know what it is you want to do. Like, think of how often, like, you actually know what it is you want to do without deep introspection.
Right?
Like,
Usually you think you know what you want to do,
right.
and then you learn a lesson that you didn't
That you
actually
didn't
want.
actually want to do that.
Right?
And so, like, I think that's why people have such a hard time creating is because they're trying to create things that they don't actually want to create.
Right. So they're
You know?
not working together with it.
Exactly. Whereas, like, I think the step that people should really focus on is that, like, why do I want this? To almost determine if it's actually what you want. Like, do you, like, just the Barcelona example again, like, do you want to be a Barcelona player? Because you know what that entails? That entails waking up at
Right.
5 a.m., running a fucking 5K just to get your warm up for the day. That entails eating clean. That entails doing these workouts. That entails flying to Spain, living in Spain, learning and living in this other culture. Like
Right.
it's not just, hey, I want to be this thing. That
Right.
you have to encompass it all. And you have to know, like, yes, this is what I want to do.
Right.
I do want to go through these things so that I can achieve this. And if you don't have that, you're not going to achieve those things.
Right.
Like if you don't have the drive, you're not going to like
You'll fight yourself the whole way.
it's way too easy to have that alarm go off at 5 in the morning. I had a hard night last night. I can do it tomorrow. Can you? Because what's tomorrow?
Right. And it's because ultimately you want to be this and have like sleep and money. Like
Right,
you want something different than being a Barca player.
right.
Yeah. I totally. So for me, I'd say that there's like two paths on how that can go. It's like it can go from a state where like we haven't reached that complete clarity where we're like, okay, like we're getting better at like whatever this is. I have like an idea, like this is cool. I'm attracted to this. Let me go seek that direction. And then we get to see by like again setting the stuff up in the environment for what it means. We get to see, oh, like to be a Barca player, that means I gotta move to Spain. I don't want to speak Spanish, or oh, like I don't want to go and have to,
I
like you
think
said,
it's
wake up early.
Spanish.
Uh, but 100%. So these like particular aspects, the reason I mention them is because in one of the other videos, what we're looking at is when we're feeling those feelings of disharmony, or if we're in any state where we don't feel like life is just perfect, like it's just literally like everything feels like it's flowing. Any position where we're not in that, where it's like specifically perfect, what it is that there's something that's acting a little bit against the specific direction we want to go, like the full direction we want to go. And so what I was saying is the very first thing to do in that moment is that's when to find the space. That's when to be like, okay, my energy is already pulling. I need to get my energy to where it's in harmony first, not moving in a direction because it's way too difficult to like hone it in at that point. And so that's where the first piece being finding space and meditation, just clarity, the ability to just be and just allow things to come in and out,
So
views.
I think a lot of people have, or maybe not a lot of people, me personally, when I first got into meditation, it's the difficulty behind it is like kind of like understanding what you're actually doing with meditating. So, what is it you think that what is it, what's the best way that you feel people can meditate? Obviously, it's different for everybody, but like, what's the thought process behind how you approach meditation?
So for me personally, the way that I approach it is that it's my it's almost like I'm giving myself, or it is me giving myself to the universe entirely. And so it's some people like describe it, I often even describe it as like, like clearing or being like zero, but ultimately like it's not like you're still there, so there's like something. But what happens is what you like the common ground that you land on is it. And that's why like click in through that. It's because when like everything else like becomes a distraction, when thoughts come in. And so for me, what like I described I often happens is when I begin meditating, that's when I start getting, man, I forgot to text back Johnny or I didn't do this. It's because I'm becoming more in tune with myself, like my real self. And so all of these like things, they're literally coming in, all the messages, all the information, like I am in a state of receiving. And so the main thing for me to do is know that I'm by becoming more engaged, like I'm doing the process. I'm receiving these things because they're part of the process. I'm not supposed to act on it. This is the
So,
moment to do something
do
different.
you dismiss those things or do you evaluate the things as they come?
I appreciate them and do not evaluate. I do not evaluate. I allow, so no matter what, something like we don't have a necessary choice on like how like something will impact us immediately. Like if you yell, it's going to have like an impact, right? You know what I mean? Like I don't get to choose that piece. I get to choose who I am and then the environment I put myself in, and then whatever happens there happens. That's where the action comes through. So like in this one, it's knowing that at that moment, what I'm specifically doing is I've already realized like I've been doing all this stuff. It's like, yo, dude, like stop. So the whole thing is like all these things are coming because the momentum's still there. It's as if you're driving a car and you hit the brakes. Everything is gonna fly to the front because the momentum is still there, all the energy, and that's what the breath of life that we were describing from earlier. That's what that is. I'm describing the breath of life as all of these momentum things that you are creating in your life. So if you're viewing like let's say the Barca thing is what you want, so like you've reached that state of complete clarity, and we'll come back to this like piece. Actually, we'll come back to that second one.
How do
I'll
you
stick with
know
yours for.
how do you know what to breathe life into?
So that's where like the meditation comes. So either we do it with what we want, and then we learn that that's not what we want, and we learn why. So we get to change and we get to like benefit and gain something. So it's beautiful. Or we get it from that state of clarity. And so there have been like I've experienced, everyone has their own, but I've experienced moments where it's like I do know what I'm supposed to do. You know what I mean? Like, and oftentimes it can be as simple as, I'm standing around and like someone's coming through and it's like, oh, I want to hold the door. I feel like doing this. I'm gonna hold the door and I'm gonna open it. It's like no one's telling me to do that, like, but I feel like doing it.
And then they don't say thank you, and you're like, all right, fuck you, close that shit.
Oh God. Oh, but you know what I mean? And so in those moments, by knowing what we're doing, we're able to like move forward. But when we don't know, like that, the important thing is that, like when we know what we're doing, we don't need anything, like ultimately, unless like something hits us. Like that's the truth.
Would you say it's better to not act in moments of not knowing?
So I would absolutely say yes if like the old so if the until it's known. So like let's say you're in a situation where like you're completely unknown, you're like, I don't know what to do. Yes, for me the very first moment is breathe. Breathe. Deep breath, not like low breath. The deeper you go, the more in tune and the more like settled you'll be. If you do it here, it will not calm you down. If you take it from here, it will. And so doing a full breath and allow the same thing we do in a cold shower, you know, to assess where I'm at. And then depending on what's going on, like sometimes you still know. Like let's say that we're, like we're getting shot at, whatever, like
If you're getting shot at, just sit there and breathe.
exactly. If you're getting shot at, like you usually know what you're to do. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, like well, this way, let me go here. The actions become extremely clear. And so that's what I'm saying. Like in the confusion, the only reason it's confused is because then like you'll have to have like that moment. You have the space. The confusion comes like from being allowed to then like have choice. Right. And so when you're granted choice and you're like, oh, I have the space, that's when it's like that's when you really need to like be in tune with yourself. Otherwise, it's going to be very difficult. It's going to you feel like then you are being pulled everywhere because then you will be guided by anything or anyone that's around you. You'll just be like looking for stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that, but just know that at the end of the day, you'll probably learn a lesson. And yeah, I don't know how the
Which
lesson
is
will be
hard
learned.
because, life is literally just unlimited choices. You're literally just making a choice in every moment of the day.
Mm.
So, like, that being said, like, when you're building your creation, there's obviously going to be multiple steps, right? Yeah, not even steps, but multiple actions to build that creation. Again, going with the Barcelona, like, obviously, like, we've listed a few, like flying to Spain. That could be your first step, but like, would you think that would be the first step? Like, would your first thing be like, okay, I want to become a Barcelona player. I'm going to fly to Spain.
So at that point, I think it would just literally depend. It's about like the call. So that's the trust and like the belief in the universe. That's the good part about what it does. Is that ultimately like the thing we end up finding is like I don't know anything. Like I don't need to know anything. All I need to do is just live. If I live, I'll have all the tools that I need in each moment. And so in that particular one, it just goes back to that piece. Like either you want it, like we want to be that, like a Barcelona player, because we don't know what we really want, and it's like ultimately we want financial freedom to take care of our family because we're upset that we're in positions where we don't get to make choices that we feel are going to be in the benefit of people around us. Like, you
Or
know what I mean?
did your
These are,
dad thrust this idea that Barcelona is this amazing soccer team, and like now you just think you want
and
this
ultimately
based
you
off
want
of
to approve your dad,
right?
and like he's ignoring, like there's a whole, like you said, there's a whole bunch of things that are there, and so you'll either learn that lesson through this because you're like, oh my God, like that's
You're gonna be in Spain,
horrible.
like, oh fuck, what did I
Yeah, like
do?
this is terrible. Like I'm waking up every morning, like early, I'm like working super hard, like all this stuff, and it won't be what you want. Or, if you found that because it's like this is just what makes sense and you're afraid of it. It's like, oh, like who am I to go be a Barcelona soccer player? Like, I'm nothing. I haven't like practiced. It's like, okay, well then like what are like do you really like did you have the thing though? Do you have like the feeling, the vision, and the heart? Does it attract you? It's like, yeah, like I had the thing and like I feel it. And it's like, oh, if you feel it and you know it, that's where these next pieces come. That's where this whole like that's where this tool is useful for is when you're like, I know what I got to do. I just don't know how to do it. That's what this is useful for. If you're not in that state, then just play around, honestly. Like literally, like go find out what you like. That's the very first thing. You have to find out the things that actually interest you. Otherwise, you won't have a passion or a desire to do any of it anyway. Like right now, I'm like the last couple nights I've slept between like 3 and 4 hours on like each of the nights. One of them I woke up by myself with no alarm, fully charged. Like my alarm was supposed to go off at 10:10. I woke up at like 9:50 on that day. So like 20 minutes before my alarm, just enough time to like wake up, stretch, do my meditation and stuff. And then like once I was finished and starting to roll, my alarm hit at that exact moment. And that was on 3 hours, but I knew what I was doing. I still know what I'm doing. Because of that, it made it to where everything else was fine. I didn't have any like any kind of like drawback. I didn't have any friction. There's none of those challenges because the world literally opened itself up to me. I like every spot that I needed to be in, I was there. Everything that I needed to happen landed.
That's almost interesting. Like, think about like how difficult it is to just wake up for work, right? Like just waking up without an alarm to make it to work. Almost impossible. Like I would never like trust myself to not set an alarm to go for work because I always sleep until my alarm
Hmm.
every time.
Right.
But imagine, not even imagine, just put yourself back in time when you were a kid on like Christmas Eve and you're going to bed Christmas Eve night. You're waking up at 6 a.m. Like, no matter what, it doesn't matter. You don't need to set anything. Your ass is getting up at 6 in the morning because it's fucking Christmas morning and
And your
you're ready to
energy is
go.
like, man, you're
Yeah.
ready. You're happy. Yeah, that's the exact feeling that I feel when we're doing our stuff. So Jacob and I are partners in Mushin Media. We began together.
We need like a thing that we can do like with our hands to symbolize
Yeah,
social media.
yeah.
I don't think that's it.
Throwing gang signs for Mushin
Literally.
Media. Um, but yeah, yeah. This is partner in crime over here. So we've actually I wanted to mention too the be awesome, be beautiful, be yourself. We built together, created together at the end of our podcast that we were recording one time.
I don't even
Organic.
know how we came up with it, dude.
It was like organic. We were like thinking of like how to like, or at least that's how I remember it. Like we were literally like done talking. We're like, be awesome, be beautiful, like, be yourself, and that was it. And we finished, and we're like, okay, that's the thing. We're keeping that.
I think it like stemmed from, remember when I used to say don't be sorry, be yourself? I think
Yeah,
it
with the
stemmed from that.
well, very likely. Hmm, that's solid. That is solid. Hmm. Be awesome.
Be beautiful, be
Be yourselves.
yourselves.